Yeah.
All right. Good evening. Hope you're all doing well. Today we're learning Maseches Sanhedrin Daf Tzadi Hey, and we'll curve around a little bit onto Tzadi Vav Amud Aleph, chipping away, chipping away. I will be out of town Tuesday night, and I don't know what time I'm landing on Wednesday, but I will not be here Tuesday night. I'll try and get a sub. And I'm hoping that we'll just keep doing these small changes because the Masech is not getting any different. It's not going anywhere from here to the end. So got to find a way to do this. So we're on Tzadi Hey Amud Aleph, about 8 lines down. There was a very unfortunate story about the Ir Nov Shel Kohanim, where so many Kohanim were killed. There was a flow of events where Doeg made a comment, and it led to some ripple effects, and David played a role, and it really was quite a complicated scenario. And we're going to be learning about that today for some part of the day. The pasuk says, "My od hayom benov la'amod." This is a pasuk that can be found in Yeshaya. I'll read the whole pasuk that says, "Od hayom," for this day, benov la'amod, and we'll soon see what this means. Is that the punishment needed to be meted out on this day? You know, Feif yado har bastion givas Yerushalayim. So what the pasuk wants to know is, what does this pasuk mean? That's what the Gemara wants to know. Amar Huna osa hayom nishtayer me'avona shel Nov. That was the last day for David to get the punishment from the avon of Nov. Amri lei kaldai, an astrologer, says to Sanhedrin, if you go today, you can take him, because the punishment of Nov is hanging over David. V'ilo, then lo yachlisla. But if you don't go today, Sanhedrin, then you will not be able to beat them. So the Gemara says that a little bit of a nace happened. A trip that typically would have taken 10 days of walking, saga b'chad yoma. He managed to get there from where Sanhedrin was to Yerushalayim. He managed to get there in one day. Kvitzas haderech. We'll be learning about Kvitzas haderech at the very bottom of the page. Kimati Yerushalayim. When he finally did get to Yerushalayim, of course, there are walls that were surrounding Yerushalayim. Shadu le bistriki. He laid out one mat on top of another. Ad the salik v'yasiv mi'ilave shura, or tura, that he can see above the wall. Ad Chaze Lekula Yerushalayim. Sanhedrin builds up this little ladder of padding. It's rugs, is I think the literal translation of bistriki. And he could finally see Yerushalayim. Kichaze, when he actually saw it, Izutar be'ene. It looked like a very small city to him. It wasn't like, no, like I've done more, I've done bigger things. This doesn't bother me. Omar Halodahi Karta de Yerushalayim. Is this the city of Yerushalayim? De Allah Argeshis Kol Mishyarasi, that I gathered together all of my troops. The Allah Kivashis Kol Medinta, and I also captured a bunch of countries along the way to capture this tiny little Yerushalayim. Halo Hizeira. The Chalashim Kol Kirche Amamaya, the Kavshis Bitkof Yadi. It's small, and it's weaker than all of the cities that my nation helped to conquer with a strong hand. So he got up from where he was on all these rugs, and he started shaking his head. Nebuch, this tiny little thing. This is what I've been chasing the whole country for, from Assyria down to Yerushalayim. And he kind of waved his hand over that space, pointing toward the Beis HaMikdash, the Har HaBayis. Tur is the mountain of Har HaBayis, and as well the Azara. Amar Nishtibe Yada Ha'idna Amre. His soldiers said, "No, I know we just got here, but look, I know we've been traveling for a long time, which was really one day, Kvitzas Haderech day. But they said, we're here. It's easy. Let's knock it out before dinner. Let's go get him. Nishtibe Yada Ha'idna. Let's go extend our hand over them." Amar Lahu, he said to them, Sanhedrin says to his people, "Tmahisu, you guys have to be fatigued or tired. Next year, tomorrow, we're all going to come down and we're going to take gulme hereg, which really should be one word according to the commentary. Mine, we're going to all take one brick down from the wall. Each of us will take one brick, kind of like a metaphor of showing that this really isn't the biggest deal. Guys, Chevra, we've done bigger than this. Sanhedrin said to his army, "We'll do it in the morning." Well, that was a very, very poor decision. Miyad, at that night, HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent a malach to the encampment where Ashur, the Assyrians, were all sleeping. They pitched tents. 185,000, and there were a handful that survived. We'll learn about them soon. Vayashkimu baboker, those who were still survived, they woke up in the morning. They woke up. Come out, everyone was a corpse. Again, they went to bed the strong army. They woke up decimated. The Malach Hashem had done all the killing. Amar Rav Papa, Hainu de Amri Inshi. That's where we get catchphrases from. Bas Dina, Batel Dina. What does this line mean? Take a look at Rashi, inner margin, 2/3 of the way down. Dibur Maskal, Bas Dina, Batel Dina. Kevan Shalon Dina, Batel Hariv. When you have an opportunity, you should pounce. It's carpe diem. And that was effectively what this line was. Now, continuing the story, V'yishbi Benov, Yishbi was a person from the city of Nov, Asher Bilide Harpa, which was actually Orpa from the story of Rus, same person. And this guy Yishbi had a spear. Umishgal Kino, the weight of the spear, of the tip of the spear, Shalosh Meos Mishgal Nechoshes, 300 measures of Nechoshes. V'hu Chagur Chadasha, he was dressed in new battle gear. Vayomer Lahako, says David, and he was out to kill David. Mai Yishbi Benov, where did he get his name from? Says the Gemara, 4 lines before the wide lines. Amar Yehuda Marav, Ish Sheba al Iskei Nov. His name wasn't really Yishbi. Again, play on words. We just saw this yesterday with Sanhedrin. We saw this yesterday with Chizkiyo. These were not their real names. These are the names that we call them, but they were not actually their real names. We don't know what this person's name is yet. Amar Le Kodesh Baruch Hu le David. Kodesh Baruch Hu says to David, look, you played a role with the killing of the Nevi'im in the city of Nob. How long is this punishment going to be buried within you? You have to decide. It was because of you that the city of Kohanim in Nov were killed. And because of you, based on a long backstory, Doeg's chelek in the next world was nitrad. It was removed. And you also had a responsible role in the death of Shaul and his 3 sons, David. You need to decide what kind of consequence you want. Would you like it to be that your children will be destroyed? Wow, this is like a real crossroads. Would you like it to be that David is done, the dynasty of David is done? Or would you like it to be that you're done? Amar Lefana, first of the very long lines. The altruism is beautiful. Amar Lefana, Ribono shel olam, mutav emsar biyad oyev, v'lo yachal azari. I would rather be handed in to the enemy and let them kill me than for my people, for my dynasty, not the Jewish people, but just Shevet, just as Shevet, just the dynasty, the Davidic dynasty, as it were. V'lo yachal azari. So Yom Echad Nafak Liskor Bezoi. He went out to this place called Liskor Bezoi, or according to some versions in the Rishonim, that he went to go hunting. Asa Satan ve'ad milei ketavia. The Satan showed up and appeared to be like a deer, a tzvi. Pasak Bey Gira Velomatya. And David shot an arrow at the deer in order to hunt that deer, but the arrow never made it. Interesting that it doesn't say the arrow missed. It just says the arrow never made it. Okay. Mashche ad ante le'eres plishtim. And the deer kept running away from David. David kept chasing after it, and it drew him, Mashche, until he got to the land of the Plishtim. Yishbi Benov. When Yishbi got there, Amar Hainu Hai Dekatlis le Golias Achi. Oh, and a family tree is building now. Now we see that Yishbi was a brother to Goliath, and David, with his slingshot, managed to kill Goliath in an unarmored place on his head. So Yishbi was very upset. He wanted some revenge. So Kafte, he captured him. Kamte, Osve Veshadye Tuse Be Badia. And he put him under the weights of an olive press to torture him. He actually folded him over. That's what these words mean. That Kamte, he was folded over in a very uncomfortable position, and he was put there to be crushed. He's Abed Lenisa. Of course, David is worthy of miracles, so a miracle happened. And Makale Aramituse, the land that was under him, which normally would be very firm, which would allow for the weights of the press to press down on the olives and create olive oil. Here, there was a miracle, and Makale, it became very soft. Hainu Dechsiv, this is what the pasuk means. A pasuk in Tehillim. Tarchiv tzadi sachtoin v'lo ma'adu karsulai. That basically that his ankles didn't get crushed in the ground, meaning the ground softened under him. Ahu yoma apanya demale shab, so it's Erev Shabbos Haba. Avishai ben Seruya haba kachayv reshe v'dalad garbe demaya. And Avishai ben Seruya, who was the head of David's army, he was getting ready for Shabbos. He was chayv reshe. He was cleaning his hair, and he was doing so with dalad garbe demaya, with 4 measures of water. And then something miraculous happened while he was showering. Chazinhu kisme dama. He saw stains of blood in the shower. Ika de Amre asa Yona itrif kame. And some say he didn't see blood in the shower. He saw that there was a dove and it was getting torn apart, meaning its feathers were all falling apart. And Avishai knew how to read this message. We're about 15 lines from the bottom of the page, 6 lines into the wide lines. Omar, he said, it must be that Knesset Israel Yona imsila, that the Jewish people are compared imsila as a mashal to a Yona. Shneimar kan Yona nechla b'kesed. Shmamina David Malka de Israel b'tzara shri. He exists in some type of tsar. Again, I don't know that we would have been able to make such interpretations, but he managed. So also the Beisei v'lo Ashkeche. So Avishai ben Tzeruya went to go find David in the castle. He wasn't there. Amar Tanan, he said, I have a problem. He said, I have a Mishnah. The Mishnah restricts me from going to help him because I need an animal to ride on, but I don't have my own animal, and you're not allowed to ride the king's animal. How do we know this? Tanan, because we have a Mishnah, one that we saw a while ago in this Masechta, Ein rochven al susav, ein yoshven al kisav, mishtamshim b'sharbito, that a person's not allowed to ride on the king's horse. He's not allowed to sit on the king's chair, and he's not allowed to use the king's scepter. B'shas sakona mai. So Avishai had a halachic question. B'shas sakona, am I allowed to sit in the king's chair? Very interesting question from Lamdus. Why would you think not? It's not one of the Gimel mitzvos Yehari Gal Yavor. It says the Gemara, Asa Shal Be Medrasha. So he did what you're supposed to do. And you go to the base medrash, you ask a shaila to the rabbi, talk and learning with your friends. Amrulei b'shas sakona shal pirdami mutter, no problem at all. So Rachbe the Pirday, v'kam v'azal. So he ran. He went in to go get a parrot. He went to go get a mule, and he started driving. And kaftzala le are. Remember, we're talking about Avishai. Now Avishai has kfitzas haderech. Badi the kamaski chazia le orpa ime dehavas navla. While he was traveling, Avishai bumped into Orpah, who was the mother of Yishbi and Goliath, as we said. And she was Navla, she was spinning, she was crocheting. Ki Chazise, she was very mad at David for having killed Goliath. Soon she's going to be much more mad, or more dead, actually. What? Foreshadowing. Is that not foreshadowing? Foreshadowing is a hint. Yeah.
Spoiler. Spoiler.
No. Full spoiler.
He was right, I was wrong. That's a full spoiler.
Full spoiler.
You know we've never learned nothing, so.
Yeah, but you have learned Shas. It's true.
Rabbi Shankar thinks that we're learning nothing, but I can't remember his name.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we're learning nothing.
Don't tell him that. Don't tell him that. So she was crocheting. Ki Chazise, when Orpah saw Avishai, who was David's head of the army, psakta lepilcha, she broke off the end of her needle, shadate ilave, and she threw it at him, and savra lemigdale, and she tried to kill him, but she missed. And Amrle, she said, Alam, young man, I see liplach, please give me the needle that I dropped. So he's no dummy. Paske beresh mocha v'katla. He threw it at her and caught her right in the head, and she died. Okay, now she's gone, but we're going to come back to that in a little bit, because her death, the news of her death, was going to be very helpful. That's called foreshadowing. What? What? Orpah, Ruth's sister.
Right.
Yeah. No, what?
I thought Nova's Moab.
No, Nova's a city. That's not where she's from, but that's where Nova, all the Kohanim died. It's just she happens to be from Rus. She happens to be Rus's sister. Yeah, it's not really.
You know what entertainer was named after Orpah?
Oh God.
Yes.
No, serious.
Oh.
It was Oprah Winfrey, and they spelled it.
They spelled it wrong.
Oh, that's true. That I've heard before. Yeah.
You heard that, yeah?
Yeah.
I didn't even find it.
What would have happened if it was Orpah?
We're really dyslexic spelling. They just, opposed to it.
Okay, let's go. Kadchazi Yishbi benov, and then when Avishai saw Yishbi and Nov, Amar, Yishbi said, "Uh-oh, I see Avishai, and I already have David." But that means it's going to be 2 against 1. Hashta havu be trained v'katlinli. Now it's the 2 of them against me, and they're going to kill me. Paske leDavid leEla. So he did what any normal person would do. He picked David up and threw him up in the air as high as he could. V'datz le leromche, and he took a spear and planted it in the ground right under where his body would fall, so that David would fall on the spear. He didn't want to kill him directly. You got to look in the Rishonim here. So he just wanted to kill him in a little more indirect way. Amar, he said, he argued, that David will fall on the spear. Yishbi wouldn't kill him directly, but he'd end up getting killed. Amar Avishai Shem. Avishai pulls a Shem Hashem, the Shem HaMiyuchad. Ukme LeDavid ben Shmai La'ara. David levitates ben Maya La'ara.
Abishai can do this, but he didn't know the answer to the question on the mule. Like it seems like, I mean, that's like a little bit in this, but like, shouldn't he, if he has this level.
What is-
of knowledge
so
and,
once
like,
he has
spirituality,
to go
he didn't-
first.
he has to go first.
Yeah.
Question.
Go.
Let's go with it.
Yeah, ultimately, he asked about the horse had a problem with the mule.
That's true too. I noticed that in the learning.
If the king has a majestic horse, I understand how long.
Yeah, and the Mishnah was talking about a sus. That's true. I like that question more than Michael's question though. Saying some people, he wasn't a posek, he was a general in the army, but he had tremendous kavanah. In order to do this, we're actually going to see in a minute what happened. Let's give it one more line. Why didn't David say the Shem HaMiyuchad? Answer is, Ein chavush motzi asma mibeis ha'asurim. If you're the one who's in prison, you can't get yourself out of prison. So here we have to take a look at a Rashi. The Rashi is in the outer margin. It's halfway down. Dibur maschel ein chavush. Look what Rashi says. Ein daito mechuvenes lomar Hashem. Because he was thrown up in the air, and he's not so focused when you get thrown up in the air. He didn't have the right kavanah for it. So that's what the Gemara says. So that means what Avishai needed in order to pull off this miracle of saying the Shem HaMiyuchad and making him hang between Shemaim and Aretz was he had needed intense kavanah. David didn't have an intense kavanah because someone threw him up in the air. You can't have intense kavanah when you're being thrown up in the air. So that's why he was able to do it. That was his koach. Amar le, my bayis hacham. So Avishai says to David, what are you doing over here in the land of the Plishtim all by yourself? Why are you here? So Amar le, hachi amar li kutchabrichu, v'hachi ahadri le, because I had a conversation with Hashem earlier. Hashem says to David, he says, do you want it to be you or your people? And I said, it should be me and not the people. Amar le, apich tzlosech. Avishai says to David, you daven for the wrong thing. You need to flip things around. The Davidic dynasty needs to continue. That needs to happen. Bar Berach, Kira Lisbon, let your grandson sell wax, ve'at lo titzta'er. Let them be poor. Let them not be wiped out. But that's what you should be davening for. Okay, so we won't be the richest people in the world, but the Davidic dynasty should live on. Amarle, David says to Avishai, Ihachi, Saya Bahadon, please help me. Hainu tichsi bayazor lo Avishai ben Tzeruya, that he helped, that Avishai ben Tzeruya helped David. Amar Yehuda Marav, she'azor b'tefila, that he davened for him. He helped to daven to switch David's answer from, yes, I would rather die, said David, to I would rather my people exist, but let them be poor and let them sell wax, something along those lines. Amar Avishai Shem, and don't forget that David's still up in the air when this whole conversation. Could you imagine Avishai is down here and David's up there's like, what are you doing here? It's like out of a movie. I don't know. It's like an unbelievable thing. And he's just like, David's like, yeah, well, I was talking to Kodesh Baruch Hu about what happened with Nov. And like I kind of chose better me than the people, There's he didn't bring him down first. He talked while he was up there. Why? It's just why? Oh, they're saying the kavanah, the same kavanah. I don't know. He's having a dialogue with someone while he's Pashat floating in the air.
Watching somebody.
I don't know how I concentrate during a regular Shemona Esrei. I'm struggling with that stuff. Okay, so then Amar Avishai Shem va'achte, and then he came down on the ground. And Havakaradif Basraihu, they were running after him. Timatu Kube, when they got to a place called Kube, Amre, they said, Kumbe, let's go attack him. Namely, it's 2-on-1. We have Yishbi, who is the remaining son of Orpah, the brother of Goliath, who's still alive. And now we're two people. It was David and Avishai. Timatu betray, and when they got there, the two of them, Amri, betray Gurion Katluha la'aryeh. In 2 screams, are you going to kill a lion? Namely, this guy is huge, and even if we're both half his weight, the guy's a monster. Like he's a fighter, he's a beast, and it's not easy to win. Okay. So then they played the card. Amrele, hey, Yishpi, zilistakach le'orpa imech bekibra. Go see that your mother's been buried in the cemetery. And when that happened, when they mentioned the name of his mother, then his emotions got the better of him, and he weakened his stance, and then they actually killed him. That's when the pasuk says about David HaMelech, you can't go anywhere anymore, king. You did it once, you're not doing it again. Az nishbu anshe David lo lemor. They said to David, you cannot do this. Lo tetze od yitanel milchama v'lo sichbes ner Yisrael. You almost extinguished the ner of Yisrael. You're the ner. And the Davidic dynasty is going to be the leaders of the Jewish people. You can't do that. You cannot do that.
Had no children at that point?
What?
You had no children at that point?
No, we had 400 children.
Yeah, I'm sure he had children at that point. Yeah, I don't know how it relates to the story of like Bathsheba. I presume Bathsheba already happened, but I don't know because I don't know Tanakh.
Yeah.
I think maybe after we finish Daf Yomi, we should learn Tanakh. What do you think?
That's the only.
It's not even a joke. We should probably. It's not.
And this is Shmuel, this isn't.
This is not esoteric Daniel stuff like yesterday. 8:30 to 8:45.
Yeah. You look up on Mara, but then not yet.
Remember our first conversation today about how much we do during the day?
Yeah.
Tana Rabbanan, bottom of Tzadi Hamid Al.
Little slap plan.
What?
Always time.
I'm a king of wasting time. Are you kidding me?
I had to squeeze it on.
Yeah. Part of my schedule. Shlosha kafta lehem haaretz. There are three who had kfitzas haderech. Says the Gemara, Eliezer Eved Avram, Yaakov Avinu, Avishai ben Tzeruya. Interesting, they left out Sanhedrin. Not bad company, but they did leave out Sanhedrin because he had kfitzas haderech also. Says the Gemara, Avishai ben Tzeruya had Amron. We saw that he had kfitzas haderech. That when he was riding on his donkey, he got there. V'kam v'azal. It says he got there right away. And Eliezer Eved Avram Dechsiv Va'avo Hayom El Ha'ayin Lememra De'ahu Yom Anafak. The word Hayom implies that was the day he left, also the day he got there. It would be possible to learn that a different way. It's just not how the Gemara understands it. Yaakov Avinu's was a little bit more sophisticated, turning to the top of Tzadi Hamid Beis. Dechsiv Vayese Yaakov mi Beersheva Vayelech Charana. So Yaakov left Beersheva and he went to Charan. And then it says Uchsiv Vayifka B'makom Vayolan Sham Kiva Hashemesh. And then he said that he stopped. So Kimata l'charan, when he got to Charan, Amar, he said, wait 1 second. Efshar avarti al makom she'ispalalu bo avosai, v'ani lo ispalalti bo. I passed over Har Moriah when I was walking from where I was to Charan. And I passed over Har Moriah without davening. And he wanted to go back to the Har Moriah to daven, where his forefathers daven, where Yitzchak and Avram had daven. And Kevan de hear her b'daite l'mahadar. Once he thought about it, Kafzale Ara. He ended up back at Har Moriah immediately. Yad Vayifka B'makom. That's how he got there, and that's how he davened there. Because really, the psukim don't make so much sense. Because it implies that he left Beersheva and ended up in Charan, but then it says he went back to Har Moriah. So the psukim are difficult. So that's how the Gemara answers. There must be kvitzas haderech. Davar acher ein pgia el tefillah. Another possibility for what the word vayifka means is tefillah. This is very well known. Shnamar altis palel ba'ad ha'amazeh altis avadamrino is tefillah altif gabi. Don't pray to me. Vayalan sham kiva hashemesh. What does that mean? Basar detzali ba'ila mahadar. After that, HaKadosh Baruch Hu let him go there. After he davened, he wanted to go back to Charan. And Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu tzadik zeh ba lebeis maloni yipater belolina. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says it's not possible that this person is going to be in my Beis HaMikdash, and I'm not going to have Yaakov sleep over. That's not possible. So then what Hashem did is he sped things up in sunset. Miyad ba Hashemesh. Vayizrach lo Hashemesh. What do you mean Vayizrach lo Hashemesh? Says the Gemara, V'chi lo bilvad zarcha. He wasn't the only one for whom it got dark. That really sunset and sunrise happened because of him. All right, let's get back to the Sanhedrin story. This was just a little interruption about Kvitzas Haderech. Uminalan dekala zare de David. How do we know that most of the house of David was actually killed in the end? The pasuk says, "Va'asalia." Asalia was a woman. Aim Achaziyahu. She was the mother of Achaziyahu, who was the last king of Yehuda. That her son Achaziyahu had died. And then she went and killed the Davidic family, except for one person. Yoash was still alive. Says the Gemara, Hasam Nami by Nov also Ishtair Ev Yasar. It was Mida Keneged Mida. Remember that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was looking to mete out a punishment. So what did Avishai daven for? He davened that the Davidic dynasty shouldn't be totally killed. They were mostly killed, but they weren't totally killed. The living remnant of the Davidic dynasty was Yoash, because there was a living remnant of Nov. And while David held some culpability, some responsibility for the Kohanim in Nov, his Mida Keneged Mida was that only one person survived, just like in Nov. And in Nov, it was Evyasar. Ben Echad Achimelech, Ben Achitov, Shmo Evyasar. Evyasar was the son of Achimelech, and he was the remaining Kohen from Nov. Amar Yehuda Amar Rab Ilmale Nishtar Evyasar Lachimelech Ben Achitov Lo Nishtar Mizaro Shel David Sari Upalit. That would have been the last person, and because of the fact that he didn't die, Yoash, that allowed for the Davidic dynasty to continue through Yoash. Amar Yehuda Amar Rab Ba'alem Sancherev Harosha Be'arbaim Vechamisha Elef Ish B'nei Balachim. There were 45,000 B'nei Malachim princes, Yoshvin Bekronos Shel Zahav, with wagons made of gold, V'imahen Shiglonos Vizonos, and they had brought women with them. This wasn't for the obvious reasons, but it was more to show that this war was going to be a nothing. We even brought our wives, and we brought our harlots with us, our zonos. This is our regular life. You guys are not throwing us off our game. Okay, so that's 45,000. Uvishmonim elef giborim, 80 plus 45, 125. Levushe shiryon klipa, and they were wearing armor. Uvishishim elef, another 60, brings us to 185. Achuzei cherev ratzim lefanav, the guys who carry soldiers and they run out in front, the front line. Bashar parashim, and all the other people were just regular infantrymen. V'chein bo al Avram, that's exactly what happened when Avraham was confronted. V'chein asidin lavo im Gog uMagog, and the same thing will happen with Gog uMagog, that there will be a massive army. Just interesting that the number of the Lebanese, the number of people in Hezbollah is actually quite similar to this number. The numbers that were being thrown around in the 150,000 range in the beginning of the war. Halavai. I mean, I want us to be at the end of, if this is Gog uMagog, then this is Gog uMagog. But we want to be at the end already. But the numbers are pretty similar. Then the Gemara says, B'masnisa Tana, but really, there were way more than 185,000. And let's see what the numbers are. Orach Machanehu, the length of the camp of Sancherev was Arba Meos Parse, was 400 Parse, which is loosely translates to close to 1,000 miles. Rochav Tzavar Susav Arba'im Parse, the width of the necks of the horses alone was 40 Parsa. Sach Machanehu, and what was the total of his camp? Listen to what the Brisa says. It's against what we just said earlier. Masayim v'shishim ribo, 260 10,000s, alafim, times 1,000. And when you do the math, this is over 2 billion people. And obviously that number is impossible. I can't imagine that the number of people in the world at that time had reached 2 billion. Not only that, but if you look at the little letter gimel on the word alafim, I don't know if you have a little taich there in the older Gemaras, but I have one here on the side, and it says, alafim leisa b'ktsas kisveyad, v'chein hu nachon, tebechol ha'olam ein kol kach nefashos, adam b'sach zeh. Because at that time, you don't have that? It's, well, it would be 1 billion divided by 1,000. You take off 3 zeros. So it would still be 2 million, which is still an astronomical number for, what? Astronomical. I think that I can't imagine it isn't homiletical and just, whatever, just a hyperbolic number. Either way.
The notes in there, so it is, it's like to emphasize the strength.
Yeah, but then why take away, the alafim? I wonder how many people were in the world at that time. You're talking by Melech David, it's not what we have. That's for sure. Okay. Now, says the Gemara, Chaser Chad, -1. So hold on one second. Whether or not your count is 2 billion with alafim, or 2 million without alafim, what does Chaser Chad mean, -1? Do you mean to say that there's 2,299,999, not 2.3 billion? -1. So that was Abaya's question. By Abaya, Chasra Chad Ribo? Are you missing one group of 10,000? O Chasra Chad Alpha, or one group of 1,000? O Chasra Meya, or are we missing 100? O Chasra Chad. What did the Brisa mean, Bechlal? Abaya's right to ask. The Brisa added it. It's not like it came from nowhere. So the Gemara says, take it. We don't actually know what the Brisa meant. A ribo is a multiplier of 10,000. A ribo of Jews is 10,000. Shishim ribo, 600,000 Jews. 60 times 10,000. What?
there's no practical, I mean, it'd be nice to know.
That was gonna be my next sentence, yeah. Lamai
It
nafkamina.
would be nice to know, but
If it's all hyperbole.
it'd be nice to know if it is or isn't.
It's not,
Really.
nice doesn't govern the day, it's true.
Right.
Tana Rishonim Avru B'Shechi. When the army of Sanhedrin was crossing over the river, they had to swim. The word schia, they had to actually swim. Shneimar v'cholap Yehuda shatav v'avar. They had to swim across. That was when the first batch of people crossed over the river. Emtsoyim Avru B'koma. Their clothes, the first guys, absorbed so much water from the river, which is impossible because the water comes from elsewhere in the river. But either way, you get the point. The second batch that went in, they were able to walk standing up. They didn't have to swim. Shenemar ad savar yagia, up to the neck, but they weren't swimming.
So I think it's that deep.
What?
Is that deep in the building? Like, in certain places, you probably don't have deep.
Yeah, it depends where you are.
Right.
But obviously here we're talking about
No, I know, I'm just swimming.
yeah.
You could probably find-
whenever you learn these Gemaras, we need to remember that we literally understand nothing about it.
I believe it's still.
Oh, that's even worse.
You can put like, you can also put like a big log tree, just walk across.
You could. They didn't do that.
You like swam across.
And then look at the last part. Achronim, the last batch of people, helu afar biraglehem. They literally their feet got dirty with dust. Yeah. Vilomatsu mayim benahar lishtos. They emptied the whole river, which is of course impossible because the water comes from elsewhere. They brought in some water. Maybe that's where Israel got their like desalination machines from. Really clever idea. Your numbers are astronomical, 2.3 billion or 2.3 million. We said this already, but the pasuk says 185. That's still a lot of people, but it's no 2 million. It's certainly no 2 billion. The 185, those were the commanders. And of course, the people under them were also killed, as the assumption of the Gemara, which doesn't say, but it is the assumption of the Gemara. Amar Ravashi, Dekanami, this sounds reasonable to me. We're about 2/3 of the way down, 7 lines into the wide lines. Tzadi Hamid Beis. Tichsi b'mishmanav razon, b'shmeinim de'ispehu, the leaders among them. Shmeinim, it's a very hard word to translate, but that's how it's being translated. What? What is it?
The leaders have
It's hard. No, it's hard to translate in context. It's the contextual translation. Maybe they were talking. I don't know. I mean, I would have. I think like. No, I don't mean to be PC. I just don't know what the application is because we actually the last time we learned this.
Like the wealthy or the
Right.
Right. I'm picturing a Viking type of soldier with long hair. I'm not. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. They're fat. Yeah. Okay. So that's what it means here. Ravina Dekanami. This also tracks because the chsiv Vayishlach Hashem Malach Vayichached Kol Gibor Chayil V'Nagid V'Sar B'Machaneh, all of the Sarim in the Machaneh, and then it says V'Yebu Beis Elokav Umitzi'ei Me'av Sham Hipilu B'Cherev, and his children were there. His Sancheriv's kids. We'll see what happened with them in a few minutes. That it was the Sarim and the children. First half of the pasuk is Sarim. Second half is his Mitzi'ei Me'av, the children of his loins. Shmamino. The Mahi came. How did Hashem wipe them out? These remember now we're saying that it wasn't 185 that the pasuk meant. Those were the leaders, but of course all the soldiers. How were the 2 million killed? So machlokas amurai. Rabbi Eliezer Omer biyad hikam, he killed them with a hand. Shneimar bayar Yisrael sayad agdola ayad she'asida lipar misan cherev. Wow. Okay, Rabbi Shua Omer be'etzba hikam shneimar bayomar achartimim el paro etzba lokimi he etzba she'asida lipar misan cherev. Rabbi Eliezer ben Nosha Yosef Glili Omer Amar Lo Kadosh Baruch Hu Gabriel Magalcha Natusha, is your sickle sharp? Whew. That's a conversation starter at the Shabbos table. And his line was great. Amar Lefan Ribono Shalolam, you know I keep my stuff in good order. Natusha Ve'omedes Mishesh Yismei Brachus. The sickle's been hanging ready to go. You got to give me some work to do. I'm good to go. Shneimar, as the pasuk said, Reb Shimon ben Yochai Omer also haperek zman bishul perosai. Actually, that time of year was when the fruits reached their level of ripeness, where they're ready to pluck. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu LeGabriel, Yotze levashel peros hazkek lahem. When you go out to take your sickle to cut the vines down, also just derech agav, please go Go kill a couple million people who deserve to be killed. Shnamar midei ovro yikach eschem ki baboker yavor bayom uvalayla v'haya rak zava hevin shmua. And zava, they should hear the terror as a rumor. They should hear that you're coming. Amar apapa hainu damrin. This is what people say. Agav orchach, while you're walking, lebal devavach ishtema. You should let your enemies know. Again, I don't know what the practical applications are, but that's what's happening over here. Some say, unlike all the previous answers, that he breathed into their nostrils and they died. He simply clapped hands and everybody died. It's a whole new version of the commercials from when we were playing the clapper commercial. It's a little morbid, but we have to make one based on Perek Chelek. Be a whole new commercial. So that's what the Gemara says. He clapped hands and then my anger will be calmed. He actually let Sanhedrin's people hear a whole other level of killing, letting them hear the sophisticated level of shira, and then they could not handle that, and then they died. That from your elevatedness, we exploded, naftu, tzatza, right? We exploded the goyim.
What happened? What did you say?
We said a lot of things. Which part? How did they die? These are all of Sanhedrin's soldiers. So they all went to sleep that night. They were going to take down Yerushalayim that next day. And they sent a malach to try fight against Hashem. Hashem sent a malach to wipe out the whole army. So that night they died. How did they die? They either died by a yad, they either died by an etzba, all the different ways that they could have died. So this last one was that they heard shira from the chayos, from a high-level malachim, and they died. They couldn't handle it. The Gemara says 10 lines from the bottom, Makama nishtayr mahem, how many people were left over from the entire camp of the 2 million or 2 billion? Rav Amar Asara, there were only 10. Shnemar ushar eitz yaru mispar yihyu v'nar yichtavim. A child could even write it. Kama na'ar yachal lichtov asara. How does a child write a letter? Yud. You take a marker and you move it on a piece of paper. That's a yud. Even a nar can write that number. That number has to be a yud. What else can they write? By the way, why can't it be a vav? Why can't it be a nun sofis? I don't know. I'm just saying, just asking. Don't know. I didn't learn the other side of this, which is like, the marsha. B'shmuel Amartisha, he said actually it wasn't 10 people, it was 9. Shneamar v'nishar bo olalos kenokev zayis shnaim shlosha. Sorry, I think I skipped a line. Yes, I did. No, I didn't. Shnaim shlosha gargarim barosh amir arba chamisha b'seifeha. 4 and 5 on its branches. 4 plus 5 is 9. Rabbi Shimon Levi Amar arba asar was actually 14. Why didn't you count the earlier numbers as well? Shnaim shlosha plus arba v'chamisha, which equals 14. Rabbi Yochanan Amar chamisha, only 5 lived. Sancher v'shnei banav Nebuchadnezzar v'nevuzar oden, which we really combine those names when we talk about them. It was Sancherib and his 2 sons and some other really just terrible people. Nivuzrad and Gemara, we only have a tradition about him. We don't have a pasuk that indicates he was still alive. Nebuchadnezzar, we know he was alive. Dechsiv, Rava de Revia, Dami Lebar Elohim. The 4th person with them looked like an angel. Remember, we were discussing this the other day, but we had Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah who came out of the fire. But there was a vision of there being 4. So that means that which Nebuchad is this? Nebuchadnezzar saw the 4th malach. It had to be. He saw what looked like a malach. Otherwise, why wouldn't it be? If he wasn't there at the camp when the malach was wiping everybody out, how would he know? How do we know about Sancher v'shnei banav? Because the pasuk says, "Tichsiv by he whom ishtachav beis nisroch Elohav." That Sancher was davening to this beis nisroch, his God. V'adar melech v'shar otzer banav hiko b'cherev. They actually killed their own father. We'll see why shortly. Amar Rabbi Abo, ilmale mikra kasa, without the pasuk that says that he yefshar lo'omro dichsiv v'ayomohi galach Hashem besar haschira be'ever nar hamelech Ashur, that Hashem was going to shave with a razor and Ever nar hamelech Ashur by the king, es rosh, his head, the ser haraglaim, and the hair on his legs, v'gam es zakan tispeh, and his beard would also get shaved. Okay, so again, ilmale pasuk, right? The pasuk says like this. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, this is made himself into a person, an old person. Amar Le, Kadosh Baruch Hu, in the figure of a human, said to Sancher, what are you going to say to the kings in the east and in the west? The Aisisinu livnaihu v'kat lesinhu My Amr said, their sons came from the east and from the west, and as you trampled city over city to get to Yerushalayim, you killed a bunch of people. What are you going to say to them? Amr lahu, Ahu Gavri says about himself, that man, Bahu Pachtanami Yasid. Sanhedrin says, you're right. I ain't Pelahashi. What am I going to say to them? You're 100% right. So Amar le Hechi Nabi. So Sanhedrin says back to the old man, which is really the Eibishter, what should I do? Amar le Zil b'shani nafshach. Go change the way you look. Rashi says, Shana atzmecha kadei shelo yakirucha, so they don't recognize. But my Ishan, he says, the Gemara top of Sadi Vavam and Aleph. What should I do? Amar le Zil Isi li misapra v'igzayich ana. Go get me a pair of scissors. I give a good haircut. I was in yeshiva, and I'll give you a haircut. All good. Mehecha Isi. Where should I go get this from? These are Gemaras that, like when you read them, the second layer, it has to be learned. It's just not. It's unintelligible. Amarle ol lahu besa va'isi azal ol lahu besa va'isi. Go in that house and go get some. Azal ashkechin. Who he went there, he found scissors there. Also malachi ashars v'idum like a gavrin. There were men malachi ashars who looked like men. Vavu katachnik shaisa. They were grinding up. They were cutting up some type of kernels with scissors. Amarle havuli misapra. Please give me the scissors. So Amarle tchon chad griva de kashisav v'nitanach. First, help us do a little bit of cutting, and then we'll give them to you. So tachan chad griva de kashisav. He took the blade. He started cutting a little bit. They gave him the scissors. Ad asa, but before he got back, ichshach it got darka. Amarle zil isi nura. So Kodesh Baruch Hu says, remember he's the Saba. He says, I can still do the haircut. Just go get a torch. I just need a little bit of fire. Azal isi nura. So Sanhedrin goes to go get the fire. Asli be nura bedikne. When he was walking with the fire, the wind blew, and his beard caught fire. Azal gazi l'reshe bedikne, and the fire not only got his head, but also got his beard. Amru hainu dechsi v'games azakantis. But that's what the pasuk said at the bottom. The pasuk that was unintelligible, that his beard was also burned off. Amar papa hainu damri inshi gurersa le'arma shapirle. Dragging along an Armenian is a good thing. The fire will burn his beard, and there will be constant laughter. Difficult to understand. Azal ashkach dapa mitevusa de Noach. He went and he found a piece of wood from the teva of Noach. Amar hainu elaka rabba de shez Noach mitofna. This is from the great God that saved Noach from the flood. Amar, he said, if I can be successful with what I'm doing, I'll sacrifice. He says, Sanhedrin says that he would sacrifice his children if he's successful. Guess what happened? Shamu b'noi v'kadluhu. His kids heard and they killed him. Hainu dichsiv. This is what the pasuk said that we just started with before. This Sanhedrin was davening, he was praying to his deity. He and killed him. Why? Because they heard that he wanted to kill them. That's not gishmak. So the kids overheard and they ended up killing him. We'll stop right here, about a third of the way down on Sadi Vavam and Aleph. Wishing you all a beautiful night.